So just after I finished telling you about knowledge is the only elegance, and it really is not about the elegant ladies and their wonderful costumes, here we have some elegant ladies with wonderful costumes. But, going back with what I said, that knowledge is the only elegance, we have so much wonderful knowledge about these particular dolls. Some of them, the history of the dolls themselves, and others, the particular family history, the history they carry with them. And we'll start over here with what I think is one of the most beautiful wooden dolls that we have ever had to offer in our company, and she is extraordinary. And I want you to see her from profiles as well as her front, so you can see the profile of her face. And then we're going to turn her around, and you can continue to see her from the back. She has all of her original painting. She has beautiful extra detail of the carving. For example, wonderful carving of her ears, the shape of her face, her dainty little chin. It's absolutely astonishing. And look at the costume while I have it back there, with the wonderful streamers coming down, the hand-painted detail of the flowers, the applique and embroidered flowers that are put on top of the other flowers, just giving it that added detail. Original costume and very, very extraordinary, with a wonderful matching hat. And let me tip it backwards so you can see the top of her hat a little bit. And this stunning jewelry necklace that she is wearing. I'll show you her little feet so you can see her shoes. And she has with her, which entire books have been written about, this wonderful piece of utility and yet decorative thing, the pocket, which was usually hidden on the lady's gown and designed to hold her little coins or key or, I don't know, perhaps a precious love note or something, the pocket. She has a beautiful early lorgnette with a little attached gold clip. Take it, and the box that it is being stored in when she is not using it. So that wonderful piece. And she even has her face mask. That's the back. And her face mask for attending the carnivals. And it would tie around the back and add mystery to her impression. Not much is known about the background of this doll, except in the wooden box in which she comes, the early wooden box. There was this wonderful old printed invoice for Milady and of the various pieces, fabrics and toiletries and accessories that she was buying from this shop. I will make this comment that, in my opinion, these were not simple dolls. When you get into this size, when you get into this very, very special kind of sculpting that's almost portrait-like, look at the definition of the fit, very aristocratic and all. These dolls were definitely made on special commission, and they were made for particular families. They were very expensive at the time, were very cherished in the families, and sadly, we don't have her particular story except to know those bare facts, and that the person who will acquire this doll will have the privilege of researching it further, and in the meantime absolutely enjoying her beauty, in which her elegance is very profound. Albert Mark, nothing will ever top him. So few of the dolls ever show up, even less show up in their original costumes, and even less show up with important provenance such as this particular one has. The doll first surfaced to the general public in the, when was it? 1996 at the auction of the Dina Vernay collection, very, very famous French collector who really acquired only the finest dolls. And this doll belonged to her, was one of the dolls featured on the cover of her auction catalog, and since that time has been in one person's possession. The costume is original. And it's very, very significant because it appears to be like a Russian Cossack type of thing. This was a theme that was very prominently done by Margaine Lacroix, who displayed the dolls in her boutique, her gallery in Paris, and for some reason really loved the whole idea of the Russian theme. Understand that the Ballet Russe had just come into Paris at that time and was so dominant. This did not seem to be, because I've looked at all of the presentations of the Ballet Russe to see if this could have been a costume designed after that. It doesn't seem to be, but no one knows. Here's the clue though. On the bottom of the foot is the signature that you find that very often is an indication of who the doll was representing. And this one, simply the mysterious Ivanov. Ivanov. Now, Ivanov was one of the famous early costume designers and choreographers for early Russian ballets performed in Russia. It's possible that this piece represented a costume that he might have designed at one time, but I don't know. And again, whoever is the lucky person to acquire this mark will have a wonderful opportunity to continue the investigation. I would say he ranks as one of the finest examples that I have seen of the Albert Mark doll. You know, it's believed that only 100 were made, and so far we have seen nothing to contradict that piece of information. The mark made with a very, very unique body that was designed by Aristide Botta, and it was designed to be a body of a young girl. It was getting more slender with defined hips, very, very uniquely modeled hands, and was a perfect accompaniment to the facial model done by Albert Mark, once again, a fine artist who was called upon to design a doll to help promote and bring back into the forefront the French doll and French fashion following World War I. Very, very important doll to have here. We switch to another lady of elegance, and this is the Simon, with such a great backstory. This doll, it's not from the Marion Ciesla collection, but it ought to be, because she took a special pride in researching for many years the background of this particular model by Simon and Halby. They made only 3 of the art character dolls, and this was the woman, the 152 model, with these extraordinary intaglio eyes. It appears to have been made in like 3 or 4 sizes, this being the largest size, extremely rare. And what Marianne uncovered, and every indication is that this is the fact, although there's never been any documentation found to back this up, written documentation, that the doll is a portrait of Rosa Luxemburg. And if you don't know who Rosa Luxemburg is, take 10 minutes, play Mr. Google, and you will find out all about Rosa Luxemburg, who was a very, very famous early 1900s reformer, suffragette, fighting for women's rights in Germany, and she lost her life, sadly. So very extraordinary portrait of her, and a very, very beautiful. Now this doll came to us from an original family, so the story gets even better. And here is the information that we have from the family. The doll was a gift to little Miss Phoebe Walker in 1913 on her 12th birthday, in 1913. So Phoebe Walker was born in 1901, and on her 12th birthday in 1913, she was presented this doll from her parents, Maud and Alan Walker. And it seems like she had to be 13, because this is not a doll you would give to a child, a young child to play with. This was a very statement almost type of doll. And anyway, they lived in Washington, D.C. Phoebe lived her entire life in Washington, D.C. with her family, and her father, in fact, was instrumental as one of the builders of the very famous Mayflower Hotel. And the doll has stayed in the care and possession of Phoebe Walker's family until this time. So whichever collector is fortunate enough to have it join their collection, you will be the only second owner, if you count a family as one owner, of this magnificent doll. And you can have all the pleasure of learning about Rosa Luxemburg. And Stuart told me recently, for example, he was in one place in Germany, and there was a celebration of her life going on, and everyone was going on, and they were giving lectures and talks, and people were wearing T-shirts that said Rosa Luxemburg lives, and it's absolutely fascinating. different story that many of us, I can't speak for all of you, you probably know much more than I do, that I had never heard of Rosa Luxemburg, and I find her life story most intriguing. I think you will too. And then we come over to another wonderful little doll here, and this is Flylo. Now Flylo was, when it was eventually produced, it had a little satin covered body and a satin cap. But this is an early version of Flylo, and I'll tell you how we know it is. It has this card that goes with it, handwritten by Grace Story Putnam, who was the designer of the doll. And I'm going to read to you what it says. Flylo doll. She wrote this on October 25th, 1943. The Borgfeldt Corporation of New York, after the success of the Bilo baby doll, had urged me to create another doll. I had not intended doing another one. But I modeled the Flylo doll, used the Bilo body pattern, only gave it a sitting position, which this doll has. It was supposed to be a fairy doll and was dressed in an all-over suit of satin with wings at its back and a satin cap of the same goods. But my company had wanted a baby doll that could be dressed and wheeled about by little children. The coming depression of 1929 already in evidence, and the doll did not really get started on the market. And then she signed it, Grace Story Putnam. So she wrote the story of the creating and the failure of her doll, and that accompanies this splendid doll. And there's a piece of history. This is the Only Elegance right here. What a spectacular doll, and what a piece of history. Now we have another family doll. This is wonderful. This came to us, and she's wearing a wonderful early costume, and she has her original signed bruised shoes. I hope you can see them there. All right, and she has, when people say the face, she has the brew face that people desire so much. It's just absolutely wonderful, little stuck out tongue and all. And I'm going to tell you who she is. Petronella Fredericks, known as Nellie. My name was Petronella. I'd want to be known as Nellie too. She was born on Hickory Street in the Avondale neighborhood of Cincinnati, Ohio, on September 12, 1879. She was the daughter of James and Dora Fredericks. James was a Dutch immigrant. He had worked as a successful pattern maker and wood maker. At that time, and I think a lot of us don't realize that Cincinnati was one of the wealthiest cities in the States at that time. And a lot of immigrants had come in there that were skilled and talented and had built really important businesses, some of them in the doll and toy field. At any rate, it was a very, very wealthy city, and there were numerous high-end shops and department stores. And it was there that James purchased for his little doll, Nell, the doll that is now being offered for sale. In the late 1890s, so sometime later, Nell married a young second-generation German-American. I love these American stories. John Berger, who ran a small machine shop in another section of Cincinnati. She gave birth to her only child, who went on to become a successful Harvard-trained lawyer in Cincinnati. Then she moved in 1949. Nell and John moved out to a small family farm in Mount Healthy, Ohio, where they raised fruits and vegetables and maintained a flock of sheep. Through it all, Nell maintained her doll and kept her treasured doll. All right, and it has been kept in the family all of this time and is now just being offered for the first time to some lucky winner who will be able to take this doll and cherish it and hopefully keep the family history with it. We have a portrait of Nell in the catalog next to the doll so you can see what Nell looked like. And finally, check it out. Here she is, #1 Barbie. #1, all of the magic points about being a #1, with the eyebrows, with the holes in the feet, with the perfect condition. The bottom part of her ponytail has been let loose, I guess because she was a bride, and when she was wearing the bridal costume, you would not want your hair in a ponytail. But other than that, everything is absolutely perfect. Wonderful coloring, wonderful painting, and with it, 3 of the rarest early Barbie costumes, 2 of them, well, this one and this one and this one, all having the early TM cloth label markings on them. and all of the accompanying accessories, including the very rare compact with the powder puff still inside. There are 2 or 3 pairs of shoes that have holes in the feet to match the holes on the stand, and the original stand is included with Barbie as well, along with the original window display box, which is here. And clearly, even though the label is missing from the window display box, she was shown wearing her wedding gown in this box because it would have had the width to accompany it. This is being sold by the original family owner, and if you go to our bidding platform online and look, you can see like a 10-second little video clip of the young lady who received this doll. I think she was 13 years old at the time. She was older at the time. She wasn't too much of a young child anymore, and that's why the items were so perfectly preserved. They were never played with. They were just treasured and kept, and this is the first time the doll has been out of her possession. I have never seen so perfect a presentation. #1 Barbie, #1 stand, perfect condition, 3 additional costumes, all of the accessories, and the window display box. Fabulous.